Hey guys, so today we are gonna answer a subscriber question, and the question in question was, Frederick, how do you avoid burnout as a programmer? So let's get into it. Now, this could probably be how do you avoid burnout as blank, because pretty much, well, there's a very small amount of professions, I would say, where people don't suffer from some sort of burnout, especially in the office culture and the office environments and high performing jobs and high pressure jobs and stuff of this nature, which, depending a little bit on where you work, is something that programming actually kind of falls into as a category. It is, let's not kid ourselves, it can be stressful. It can absolutely be stressful, especially when you're working in something that is not very deterministic all the time. In other words, you can have a requirement come in tomorrow saying that, hey, we need to be able to do this, and you have no idea how to do it, but it needs to be done in a week. And that's kind of where this whole education thing comes out, guys, and this is kind of where all of these companies and like where they're trying to find like the brightest and the smartest people around, because you need to have the creativity and the intelligence to solve these sorts of problems. But that also does put quite a lot of pressure on you, because at the end of the day, you're being hired to do something that most people don't even understand. And when something doesn't work, it's up to you to fix it. And usually the answer isn't always that straightforward. So what can you do then to make sure that the stress doesn't really get to you? Well, I can only give you what I do myself, and I would wager that most of my friends would call me a fairly relaxed and laid-back guy. We used to kid that if I go any slower, I'll fall asleep. But it's, and maybe that is true, because it's not that often that I experience stress. But what I can tell you, let's just go through the basics first and foremost. Number one, take care of yourself. That's number one. I mean, if you are not doing any type of physical activity or anything like that, you should start doing that. And I don't think I'm the first person to tell you that, because at the end of the day, your body is the thing that's going to determine how much you can handle. The stronger you are, the better shape you are in. Just overall, you're going to just feel better about yourself. You're going to feel better about life, and things are going to look up for you if you have if you're in shape. And then the other stuff is also fairly obvious. I hope stuff like eating correctly, making sure that you get enough sleep. All of these things are basic health things that any person can apply, and every single human being should apply. That doesn't mean that we all do it now, does it? But we should. So now the shoulds are out of the way. All right. So let's talk about this thing that might not be so clear, the stuff that I've found to be very useful. And the first and foremost thing is a mental state that you should have with you. You see, there's always going to be another story. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I mean that you may or may not get pushed into a situation where you feel that there's a sense of urgency to everything you do. And that is absolutely true. There are going to be times, depending on the work environment, where you're going to have a sharp deadline, or you're going to have to make, especially estimate things that are really, really large in scope. I mean, I've been asked to estimate half a year of work, and I mean, some people may even have to estimate work even further into the future than that. And I mean, that's just stupid. It's almost silly, or it's not completely unlaughable when you are asked to do estimations that are that big, because, and especially when your stakeholders kind of get upset with you when you can't make an accurate estimation, and you kind of go, well, I'm not a superhuman. How should I possibly know with all of these unknowns? How can I know how long it's going to take? If you answer all of these unknowns that they themselves can't even answer, then maybe that might also put stress on you. And that sort of stress, mitigating that, comes from personal security, being okay and kind of knowing that things are going to be okay. And when I say that what I mean by there's always going to be another story is that no matter how hard you work, even if you are a 10x programmer, a 100x programmer, as long as you are at a given position, like, you can never get You will never empty your backlog. It's very much like being a doctor. There's always going to be a next sick person. And stressing yourself out over trying to achieve as much as possible is just something that you're putting on yourself. The important part is that you deliver what is required on time. And as long as you're doing that, you shouldn't try so much to, you have to ask yourself if that's the way for you forward. I don't think so. Because some people think that they need to overachieve and like push themselves this far and like just produce more than everybody else in order to get a better salary or get further in their careers. And guys, that's not what it's about. No, it's very rarely about how much work that you can produce in a given time. It has to do with other things than that, and that's a separate video, how to actually get somewhere with your career if that's your goal. But the secret, like the small secret I can give you, is that it has very little to do with how fast that you can work. It has more to do with how well you are going to fit in as a leader of some sort, or a team manager. That's commonly the way people are trying to these days sell the idea that you can get to a higher level of salary and so forth by just being an expert as well. But it's very rarely about how fast you are. So that's number one. There's always going to be a new story, guys. So don't stress yourself out over not being fast enough. The important part is to be, or rather, you don't try to be as fast as possible. Try to be fast enough. Take the time that you need to do the job well. And if you are in a situation where you get and this is also very common, you have sharp deadlines pretty much all the time, and you work in an environment where the pressure is on. And you basically work for an employer where you feel that you have very little time to relax. I would say that it falls into two possibilities here, and that's the thing that I've done myself, which is that if you feel that you are under constant stress and you feel like everything's burning all the time, there's a fire to put out every single morning you come into work, I would ask myself the fundamental question: is this seeping into my personal life? Because if you cannot have the compartmentalization to actually go home to your family or to your spouse or to whoever, or just by yourself, if you cannot relax at home and you feel that your job is seeping into your mental state outside of the office, then you are not relaxing. It's basically like losing sleep. If that is your case, I say that I will tell you right now, I highly urge you to either switch jobs or communicate that very clearly to your employer, because you are, trust me when I tell you this, unless you have some very, very good reason to stay really, really loyal to your company, there is very little, guys, you're programmers, the market, everybody wants you, everybody. There is no way that you're not going to find another job, so you can actually find a job that suits your lifestyle a lot better, very likely. But I think that you should be fair and at least communicate to your employer that, hey, you're seeing a lot of stress build up, and unless your employer can accommodate a better work situation for you, then this is the question you need to ask yourself: what's more important? Is that company more important to you than your own health? Because I can only speak for myself, and I can say that sometimes things are stressful, but I've also been very clear with, I work at a startup these days, and the pace we have to work is insane in comparison to larger corporations that I've worked for. And I'm fine with that. I enjoy to work at a high pace, but I've also told my employers that if we ever, I will do extra hours when it's needed. But if it ever gets to a point where we are only sustainable if I work more hours than I get paid for, I'm out the door immediately, because it's not that important to me. I will prioritize my long-term health over this company, and that is something that you should be you should make that decision for yourself. So unless you are running your own company, because if you are the founder of the company, it's likely that you're going to have to work quite hard. Ask yourself if it's really worth it. So what I want you to take away from this is that, number one, take care of yourself. That's just the red thread through all of this. You have to consider what is long-term beneficial for you as an individual. And that means taking care of your body, taking care of, you know, your mind, making sure that you get to relax and sleep and do all that good stuff. And thirdly, make sure that you understand that you can never finish. There's no, like, if you are a programmer working as a professional, you have to just figure out what feels right for you. Like, you have nothing to prove to the rest of the world. There's nothing to prove. There's always going to be another, as with the doctor. There's never, the amount of sick people are never going to end. So that doesn't really matter if you take things at your own pace or if you sprint. You're never going to get to the finish line anyway. So you might as well find a pace that works for you. Have a great day.